Before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first, make sure that you are not, in fact, just surrounding yourself with assholes. Welcome to the World Crypto Network Book Club. I'm Tom, and this is Nick.
Hey guys, how's it going? Glad to be back. Good to be on a new book too, right?
Yep, we had a little week off there. We had some scheduling problems, but we're back now, and we hope to go through Neuromancer about 25% at a time in the Kindle, and that's around 100, 150 pages if you're reading it in the old-fashioned book. We should calculate that out better, but it's kind of harder to do. They don't put the page numbers in the Kindle like they used to. So, but we're glad to be back with you talking about Neuromancer. And I just wanted to start off with the first line, the famous first line. The sky above the port was the color of television, tuned to a dead channel. And this brings up a good parallel to our last book, Snow Crash. You might right away think that port means, seaport, but it could also mean computer port, people coming in and out of the matrix, the place, the connection between the virtual world and the real world or the default world. And having the sky be kind of the color of television, gray, staticky, snow crashy, even, to bring up the actual name of the second book, really brings you in grittiness and the realness that is Neuromancer. So Neuromancer is drastically different from Snow Crash. Snow Crash is more of a comic book, cartoony. It was originally made to be a graphic novel, as it says in the end lines. And Neuromancer is definitely a film noir, an anti-hero, a bad dude doing bad things. Nick, what did you find different between this book and Snow Crash?
It's a little slower in his setting things up, especially getting in between dialogue and the movement between characters and when they're talking. Like in Snow Crash, people will be doing a lot of stuff while having a conversation. In this, it's kind of more mellow and everybody's kind of absorbing a situation while having a conversation. And one of the things I like to do is he gets into some specifics in what are things you wouldn't think are important, but like we were talking about offline before, how he talks about the 3 murders he did, but it was just brushed off, it wasn't even a thought. It was a sentence, and then boom into some other different detail in the book, and never go back to that. You know what I mean?
You completely forget because you start to root for Case because Case is a programmer, he's a hacker, he wants to get on the internet. You're all rooting for him, but at the same time, in the back of your mind, if you remember that one completely throwaway line, he's like, I killed 2 men and a woman, which is just really dark. But he's down on his luck. He's addicted to drugs. He's on speed or something like that. And his main problem is that his last employer put some kind of an anti-internet drug into his system, and now he can't get back into the matrix. His system, nervous system, something like that.
It was a mycotoxin,
A micro. Some microtoxin. I mean, so he gets this toxin in his system. He can't properly operate the deck that puts you into cyberspace, into the matrix, into the computer world. So all of his old skills are worthless. He was a great hacker. He was a kind of a computer programmer, if we want to say that. And now he's just a junkie on the street. And he's pretty much going from bar to bar, drinking it up, looking for drugs, and kind of trying to get himself killed, it seems. He says, a year here, and still he dreamed of cyberspace. Hope fading nightly. Beautiful language with Gibson. And like you said, Nick, descriptions are much heavier, a lot more detail into the clothing, the type of buttons, the types of snaps. In later Gibson novels, he talks about fashion to a great degree. He has an incredible eye for detail, and all of those details add up to make the character. So I guess we should probably just start and go through the characters. Who have we got? We've got Case, that we've been talking about. Case is the programmer, and he's running around.
He's the console cowboy. I like that nickname.
Yep, console cowboy. So he was damaged with Russian mycotoxin. He's here's a good highlight that I have. His total assets were quickly converted to new yen, a fat sheaf of the old paper currency that circulated endlessly through the closed circuit of the world's black markets, like the seashells of Trobeland Islanders. It was difficult to transact legitimate business with cash in the sprawl. In Japan, it was already illegal. So if you're looking for a tie into Bitcoin, money, cash money, is illegal. And probably because it's too easy to copy. I mean, there's way too many copies. The other thing you see a lot in this, well, here's a line that says, in the first month, he'd killed 2 men and a woman over sums that a year before would have seemed ludicrous. So it was over nothing. It was over like no money. Maybe a disagreement, maybe a hit. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he was getting paid by like a disgruntled lover or something to go and off people so he could get a fix.
Unbelievable, and just yeah, it shows you the level of darkness that we're dealing with here. It's not all light and fluffy like Snow Crash. It's a much different novel.
Oh yeah, way different. Yeah, just a lot more detail into like the little things and what's going on.
So he's in love with his ex-girlfriend, kind of Linda Lee. They're both kind of addicts, and he's thinking about sleeping. Let's see. There's one of the. Hmm. Case's primary insight into the dynamics of street dealing was that neither the buyer nor the seller really needed him. A middleman's business is to make himself a necessary evil. So he's just a middleman in the drug business, and he knows it. He knows that it's pointless, he's not useful, that he's not irreplaceable, certainly, and it's just he's on a downward spiral.
Yeah,
So.
they already have their peer-to-peer transactions going on, right? They don't need a middleman to sell their drugs.
Yep. And it's also clear that yeah, he's hooked up with a lot of bad people, and there's a lot of body modification going on. Already in the very first scene, the bartender has a robotic hand. There's people where the author's describing their choice to be ugly. That a lot of people get the generic plastic surgery and they look pretty good, and then there's other people who don't do it and maybe even go the other way, getting kind of grotesque plastic surgery, or in the bartender's case, sticking with an old robotic arm instead of one. So very much the mixture of human and electronic, human and robotic culture is definitely happening in this society.
Oh yeah, especially what now they have those new 3D printed robotic hands that they just printed one for. It's like some girl or something. I remember reading an article. That's pretty crazy.
Sounds awesome. They also have a dolly clock hung on the wall between the bookcases, its distorted face sagging to the bare concrete floor. Its hands were holograms that altered to match the convolutions of the face as they rotated, but it never told the correct time. Incredible detail from Gibson. It really adds to the whole flavor of the book, just the way you're moving through it. Let's see. He's still kind of bumming around the streets. The air's bad, and Case starts to get a little paranoid because, well, oh, first here's a description of the arcade. So I want to bring up a picture because I found there's a lot of great art for Neuromancer, which is a surprise because both this and Snow Crash, they should be movies, right? I love movies. I like books too, but especially visual idea books like these, they would get to so many more people with their movies. And here's a picture kind of what the arcade might look like. And I found the section that goes with this. So it says, he's walking by the arcade and the lights are just incredible. And he says, someone scored a 10 megaton hit on Tank War Europa, a simulated airburst drowning the arcade in white sound as a lurid hologram fireball mushroomed overhead. And you can see in the drawing here a picture of a mushroom cloud in the center there. So just incredible arcade
That's
culture.
a really cool piece of art, Tom. That's awesome. Whoever did that.
That's a first page search for Neuromancer on the old Google Images. So not a lot of work, but I saw it and instantly, like, I hadn't even thought of that the arcade would be so, kind of Wii-like, so virtual reality. I was kind of thinking, old-fashioned arcade machines like Missile Command, has a lot of explosions and bright lights. But so pretty soon, Case is moving along, and his girlfriend kind of sets him up. She does this thing where she says that the certain guy is trying to kill him, and this pretty much gets in his head. And then he sees a woman who has, quote unquote, a glint of silver across the eyes. And this is our first introduction to Molly Millions. And Molly is just so badass. She's clearly the basis for the Trinity character in Matrix. Both of them have silver sunglasses on Trinity, but with Molly, the glasses are actually built into her eye sockets. So she has just sockets of silver, which are, of course, hooked up, and she can have like a heads-up display. It doesn't sound very fancy. It sounds like she has a clock.
Like a Google Glass just over her eye.
Yep, very much. Google Glass, like her entire eyes. You can never see her eyes. I don't think in the entire book series she's completely silver-eyed, but at the same time, just a major character. So Case is running around. At one point, he's trying to sell, quote, 3 megabytes of hot RAM. So he's selling RAM. He can't get someone to buy his RAM. He's having a rough time, and he gets a rented pistol. So he rents a gun for an hour. And I don't know how you expect to get the gun back, like if the person has a gunfight. It seems like a really bad business. But the rent-a-gun for an hour thing seems to work. He scares away the girl, and then he talks to Wage, who was the guy he owed money to, who he thought was going to kill him. And Wage is like, I'm not trying to kill you. So it doesn't make any sense. And at the same time, he's chased by another person, which is Molly Millions. And he finally gets a close-up, and he says, she wore mirrored glasses. Her clothes were black, the heels of black boots deep in the temper foam. Because he lives in kind of a coffin hotel room, which is something that I'm not sure was real at the time, but is definitely 100% real now in Japan. You can go sleep in like a sleeping tube, like tube hotel rooms because they have an incredibly small island over there, not a lot of space, and this kind of tube hotel room is actually economically feasible. And she shook her head. He realized that the glasses were surgically inset, sealing her sockets. The silver lenses seemed to glow from her smooth, pale skin above her cheekbones, framed by a dark haircut in rough shag. And we have another picture. This is kind of the cover from, I think, Mona Lisa Overdrive. But it's a nice picture there. Let's see what else. Nick's got a picture. Aha, Tube Hotel. Yeah, look at that. That would not... I mean, I guess it's doable. You could pretend that you were in space, maybe. Like a space capsule. Like maybe just for one night. But boy, it would be...
If you're working across, maybe you're working like 100 miles away and you just need a place to, rest your head for, a few hours. That could be pretty good. It cost a couple bucks. You don't got to spend, 30, 40 for a hotel.
Yeah, just for me, it's always like, what if it gets locked? What if I get stuck inside? What if there's an earthquake? I don't know. It's so small. But I guess if you just go in there, go to sleep, it wouldn't be that bad. I mean, pretend you're in outer space, maybe. Case is living here, so he's spending day to day there. He had like another hotel called Cheap Hotel, where he had a place there, but he never stayed. He always stayed at this place. So Case runs into Molly, and she stops him from running, and they're able to have a conversation, and she says, "Except I do hurt people sometimes, Case. I guess it's just the way I'm wired." She wore tight black glove leather jeans and a bulky black jacket cut from some matte fabric that seemed to absorb light. Once again, the clothing details in Gibson, the fashion sense. And very much Trinity. This is, Trinity in the Matrix. Let's see, she spreads out her hand. Oh, and she's also got, like, Wolverine claws underneath her hand. So she's a bad dude. Like, you don't want to mess with this.
Nails, right? Got, like, it comes out of her nails.
Yeah, she held out her hands, palms up, the white fingers slightly spread, and with a barely audible click, 10 double-edged, 4-centimeter scalpel blades slid from their housing beneath the burgundy nails. Very bad. So you do not want to mess with Trinity. So Trinity starts to build him up. She gets some coffee. They
You,
start. Huh? Go ahead, Nick. What you got?
you keep calling her Trinity, and I just find that
Oh,
funny.
yeah, you're right. Molly, Trinity, whoever she is. Again, the movies get in your head and it erases the whole thing. But yeah, but she seems like that. She's being all nice to him, and then she says, "You're street samurai." So again, the Japanese influence is there. He's calling her samurai, and they're looking at a robot crab, and it's just so funny. They have all these robots, and robot crabs are crawling around. So I was hanging out with Molly. And now, this quiet courtyard, Sunday afternoon, this girl with a gymnast's body and conjurer's hands, because she's got that magic ability to make those knives come out. And then he says, lost, so small amid that dark, hands grown cold, body image fading down corridors of television sky. And he's kind of having dreams about all of his friends, all those things. And then we learn that Molly can see in the dark. She has microchannel image amps in her glasses. And they take Case and they give him an operation. And they're going to try to get the chemicals out of him so that he can hack again. And this is where the book gets a little adult, Nick. She threw a leg across him and he touched her face. Unexpected hardness of the implanted lenses. Don't, she said. Fingerprints. And then I'm not sure if I highlighted it. Looks like I didn't. But the part where it gets real is damn, I wish I highlighted it. It was way out of control. I think he used the word scrotum. So yeah, there it is. She answered him gently by reaching back between his thighs and gently encircling his scrotum with thumb and forefinger. So we're not in the snow crash world anymore of the casual description. Molly decides that she's going to hook up with Case. They're two people in the world. It's kind of shown kind of a end of the world type theory where they could die at any moment, so they may as well hook up. That kind of idea, Nick. Do you think it's also just
Yeah,
she's a
yeah, for sure. Because Case is already living like his life's, going to end, and Molly, you can't live her life and not think at any second yours could end. That's just crazy. She's basically a hitman, right? Like she does some crazy shit.
I think it's something about Molly being a girl that transforms things. Because normally, if the guy was a hitman and he went to a bar and he's picking up on a woman, you'd be like, oh, of course, he's going to try to take care of that evening. But now Molly is the woman is the hitman. So now she has this kind of rushed attitude, and she even seems to be coming on to Case. I'm not sure he's that motivated. He's just had surgery. He's been down in the dumps, been on all these drugs forever. He's kind of a waste, but it's all kind of part of her bringing him back, I think. So, like a phoenix, he's been down. He gets this operation from these strange gangster guys that Molly works for, and he's going to go back into the Matrix now that he has the operation. What do you think about that, Nick?
I think that his operation is slick. He gets like a new liver. Oh no, he gets his pancreas taken out and replaced. Then he gets something new on his like liver and spleen or something where he can't do drugs anymore. And they even yeah, sure, go do as many drugs as you want. You'll be fine. You can go back to that lifestyle after you do this job for us. But until then, you can't do.
Actually, I don't think he can ever go back. Like the new pancreas that they gave him. Let's go out on a limb here. Let's assume that it was vat grown from DNA by a computer, right? They're pretty much saying that because this new pancreas or whatever won't process the seed or whatever it was that he was using. They also replaced his liver because he's an alcoholic, but that will presumably continue working. But I think he gets some drugs a couple minutes later, and he goes and tries them, and they don't work. So it's the ultimate.
He does not get his high.
It's the ultimate detox. It's not a 12-step program. They just replace, here it is, your new pancreas Case and those plugs in your liver Armitage had them designed to bypass that shit. You're biochemically incapable of getting off on amphetamine or cocaine. And he looked down at the things and said, eat it. Eat a dozen. Nothing will happen. He did. Nothing did. So.
Yeah, but then this leads to him, getting a little more anxious to hop back into the Matrix, because now he can do it. That's going to be his new drug and addiction. He's going to go back to what he originally was addicted to.
And he also learns I'm not sure at that point, but then he learns the sudden truth that, of course, every bargain comes with a downside. There's a bit of Faustian in this bargain. Allegedly, they say they've put little sacks of the microtoxin inside of his system, and that the sacks are melting, so that if he doesn't get a cure from them again, that he'll go back to not being able to go into the Matrix. So, very much they have him by the balls. Throwback. So he says, 7 days and he'd jack in. If he closed his eyes now, he'd see the Matrix. And you really get this feeling as a reader in the first half, and especially as all of us are addicted to the internet now, this feeling of withdrawal. He cannot get onto the Matrix. He can't get into cyberspace. We don't really know what it's like, if it's flying around or running around, or like what the feelings are like, but we can imagine ourselves like being off the internet for months, not being able to do the things we do on the computer every day. It's very much a withdrawal. It's like a drug. And again, Gibson, ahead of his time here, describing internet addiction before we even had internet. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a really good observation. I didn't really connect that until we just started. I just brought up he was addicted probably previously to the Matrix. Yeah, man. I just been going camping for a couple of days. You're like, oh, I don't know what's going on in the rest of the world. I'm just out here taking hikes.
Even today, I was having such a good time looking at Reddit and getting all the reaction, and you go away for a couple hours and you're like, I wonder what's going on the internet without me. And it could be anything. You have no idea what could be going on that internet without you.
Sentiment completely flipped. Everything could have gone to shit in the 30 minutes you walked away. You don't know. It's the internet. It moves at whatever speed it feels like.
Oh, and with Bitcoin, the announcements, the news, the whole companies could change. Like a couple days ago, Butterfly Lab, poof, no more. All these things. You have no idea what's going to happen. So pretty soon they're leaving the place where they were in kind of a Hong Kong, Japan type area. I'm never really sure where we were in the first part, but they go back
in Japan.
Jingu. Okay, so they're in Japan, and they go back to the Sprawl, which turns out to be the area up by New York and Boston, right? So it's the Boston, New York area. It's the Sprawl. And there we go. They're describing the toxin sacks that are inside him, and they're getting him the best computers, the best computer stuff. It says, the Ono Sendai, next year's most expensive Hosaka computer, a Sony monitor, a dozen discs of corporate-grade ice, a Braun coffee maker. Armitage had only waited for Case's approval of each piece. Where'd he go? Case had asked Molly. He likes hotels, big ones, near airports if he can manage it. Let's go down to the street. She zipped herself into an old surplus vest with a dozen oddly shaped pockets and put on a huge pair of black plastic sunglasses that completely covered her mirrored insets. So she's wearing sunglasses over her sunglasses. And again, the
that's gotta be a style thing,
Oh yeah, well she doesn't want to stand out. She's such a hard hitter with those eye socket things. You can only imagine, even in the future, where anyone can get eye socket computers built in if they have the credits, she still stands out. I don't think there's any other character with him in the book.
Yeah, you're right. You'd stand out regardless, because not everybody would get them. There would still be people like, no, I don't want the eye socket thing. I don't like the look, or maybe there's something new that's going to be better. Who knows? But yeah, you're right. She would stand out. Plus, if she is a known assassin or street samurai, that could be, oh, that's the lady with the silver eyes. That could be like, something people know her colloquially as, and that wouldn't be a good thing if you're trying
There
to
could
lie.
be a price on her head, scores to settle. People could want to take her down in the street. We never really know Molly's background. We only know that she's got those blade knives, and she's definitely using them. People are getting cut up. So they give him all the best computer equipment. He's going to get some breakfast, eggs, real bacon. It'll probably kill you. You've been eating that rebuilt Chiba krill for so long. So they're going to Manhattan. They're going to get some breakfast, and it's just again the world of the. You can go from nothing in China and Japan to something in America. He's got this surgery. Everything's turning around. So and then now he finds out that his friend Dixie Flat, who's a programmer called Flatline, he's dead. But they're going to get his construct, which is another really great sci-fi idea here. The idea that you could project yourself or part of yourself, your brain, or your knowledge into a computer. And as we find out later, he's going to be a major character in the book, like kind of guiding him through this quest that he's on to hack some big computer or do whatever these weird guys who have freed him want him to do. So. And of course, to get their hacker friend, they're going to have to hack something. So they've got to bust through ice to get him out. And this is where Molly thinks the job's a little weird, because they could be stealing all of these other constructs while they're there, constructs that are much more valuable, like the next year's models were all stored there, but instead they're just going to steal this one guy. So they're definitely onto a bigger fish than we can see now. And at this point, we get a pretty great description of cyberspace or the Matrix. And I'm going to go ahead and read you guys a pretty big paragraph.
Before you jump into that, I'd like to say, it was also pointed out that, Molly was like, Chase, Case, I'm sorry, he wasn't he's not like the best hacker. He's just like he's a pretty good hacker, so people might know his like reputation, but he's not she doesn't understand why they picked him. Like, they could have picked 100 people for the same price that they're giving him.
I think part of it's got to be a presumed relationship that he'll have with the construct. The construct's his friend, so maybe he's the best one to work with his friend. Who knows? It's interesting to think about a construct as a computer program with its own mind and its own choices, and that it could be difficult to work with like C-3PO. I always watched Star Wars, and I was like, why would you create a robot that's whiny and doesn't want to go to battle and is afraid of everything? And I mean, I guess he's a protocol droid, but still, he has the absolute worst personality from a robot perspective, where you can just program things. Maybe there's more to it than that, and that's probably why I chose Case. But also, I think it's because they can get something over on him. They could put the toxic sacs inside of him. He would let them operate on him. He's down on his luck. But it is interesting.
It's true.
They definitely have a major heist of some kind coming up. They're building up, like getting him back in the Matrix is just part one. Like what he's going to hack, that's where we're building with this thing. But here's a description of the Matrix. The Matrix had its roots in primitive arcade games, said the voiceover, in early graphics programs and military experimentation with cranial jacks. On the Sony, a two-dimensional space war faded from behind a forest of mathematically generated ferns, demonstrating the spatial possibilities of the logarithmic spirals. Cold, blue military footage burned through, lab animals wired into test systems, helmets feeding into fire control circuits of tanks and warplanes. Cyberspace, a consensual hallucination experienced daily by billions of legitimate operators in every nation, by children being taught mathematical concepts, a graphic representation of data abstracted from the banks of every computer in the human system, unthinkable complexity, lines of light ranged in the non-space of the mind, clusters and constellations of data, like city lights receding. And then Molly changes the channel. It was a kid show about cyberspace. to us, isn't it mind-blowing? Even now, it's a consensual hallucination experienced daily by billions. That's cyberspace. That's where we are right now. And part of it is because of this book. This book came out in 1984. So this is before cyberspace. I'm barely on computers at this point. A couple more years, get the Apple II. A couple more years after that, we'd get BBSs, or for me anyway. A couple more years after that, we'd get on the internet, email, that kind of thing, telnet, basic internet. A couple more years after that, the whole graphical web would explode, and eventually we'd get to where we are now. But we would have got there without this book, I don't think. So let's see, what else is going on?
It had to have inspired so many people to get into these like industries and develop some of the technologies that they're developing. Not even people just in like cyberspace, but like maybe it inspired somebody to start wanting to work on like the 3D printing organs or something, you know? That's crazy.
And of course, the big thing now is Oculus Rift, which I'm just dying to try. Like, I've tried Google Glass. I thought it was really, really impressive. It's a little floating square out there that, okay, Glass, take a picture, and that would work. It would take a picture. It's really basic, really 1.0, but you could definitely see the room for improvement. And I imagine Oculus Rift, it's a big 3D glasses system you put on with the headphones, and people have just described it as incredible. Hank and John Green, the Nerd Fighters, he tried one out recently, and it was a horror game. And so he's walking around through a creepy old house, and said when he took the goggles and stuff off, he was still afraid. He thought that he was still in the creepy house. Like, his mind had trouble telling the difference between the reality and then the creepiness that they'd put him through. I've also heard about a flying game where they've designed a special thing that you could like sit on and like lay forward on, and then you would fly like a bird and they'll like blow air at you.
Right,
And
that
people
sounds crazy. I want to do that. I want to do that. I would pay money for
They
that.
say 100% that when people do it, that it's like flying, and that they feel like they have just been flying like a bird, like everyone's always wanted to fly, like a bird. It sounds really cool. I mean, the closest thing I've got is at Disneyland. They have that one of those new rides where you ride a glider, and so you sit in like a hang glider and put a big screen in front of you, blow air at you, they spray water at you. But it's so much more primitive than these goggle systems, because the goggles, it really is, you watch the people trying it and they look up in all directions. They really do experience a 3D reality in all directions. And they had one guy recently who did it, and he fell right over backwards in his chair. He had like a bad chair, and he just went right over backwards because he was in the 3D world. And that's both creepy and exciting. So
I think it's awesome. Tom, I'm with you. I want to do the bird game. I saw that video and read some of the articles on it. That sounds like so much fun.
And you could tell the people that were in it, they wanted to do it too. Like, they designed it because they wanted to do it. They made a whole special ride-on thing. It probably vibrates and stuff. Does all kinds of things you can't even imagine. I'm sure they have air blowing through or some kind of thing. But yeah, they definitely say it was like flying. And yeah, Oculus Rift is on my list of things to try. So next up, got a quote here about Microsoft. The word Microsoft is actually a part of this book as well. And that's very funny, because a few years later we would all know Microsoft, but from something very different. It says, the counter that fronted the booths displayed hundreds of slivers of Microsoft, angular fragments of colored silicon mounted under oblong transparent bubbles on squares of white cardboard. And behind the counter, a boy with a shaved head stared vacantly into space. A dozen spikes of Microsoft protruding from the socket behind his ear. So Microsoft is a little, like a USB stick that you stick in your ear with a program on it, and then, I don't know, you get the program into your brain somehow. It's not exactly clear. But this is where they're going to get him scanned. So they want to see if those packets are really inside him. But it doesn't seem like it. And they're gathering gear for the big hack. Molly's leaving. Here we go. Eventually, when he gets into the Matrix, it's a little bit of Howard Hughes, where he stayed in his room all the time and peed into bottles. He says, "This is it. This was what he was, who he was, his being. He forgot to eat. Molly left carts of rice and foam trays of sushi on the corner of the long table. Sometimes he resented having to leave the deck to get up to use the chemical toilet they'd set up in the corner of the loft. So he doesn't even want to get up to use the toilet. That's how engrossing this internet is, this, cyberspace. Sounds incredible. Sounds phenomenal. And again, this is 84. He's so far ahead of this. So he's moving along. He's hacking through SendNet, and he's starting to try to get his buddy out. I think what he's up to.
Oh, that just reminded me of that GIF, Tom, I just linked you from South Park, the Warcraft episode.
All right, let's
You
see.
remember that episode?
Yeah. Let's see the GIF. Oh, God. This part I could have chosen to forget. I'll even make it bigger for the poor bastards at home. Oh, wait, I'm on you. Ha, here we go. Take this, you bastards. Oh, my. But, yeah, this is...
It's too important to be in the virtual world.
Yeah, and it starts off so sweet. She's going to give him cheesy poofs, and she's helping take care of him. But, yeah, by the end, he's just spraying out the poop. And, yeah, this is pretty much what Case is doing, except he's hacking the cyberspace. He's not just playing the Warcraft. But it does show you the internet addiction and how it's pretty much the same thing that Gibson's describing here is what the South Park guys are showing in their video. And that's, 20 years apart, easily right there. So... looks like I've kicked ahead past 25%, so I'm in unread territory. What was the last event? What was happening towards the end of this? He's kind of he's still just hacking through SenseNet. But
I had to put my Kindle plugged in, and it was whining at me that it was going to die just now. I was like, it will turn off in just a minute if you do not plug it in. It had like a big long message. I was like, wow.
They get mad at you. Yeah, they're like, you've read too many books. You got to stop now. It's really a bummer when that happens. But it looks like they're doing a combined operation where Molly's going in and Case is hacking the security at the same time. So once again, it's pretty good that they're sleeping together because they're connected, they're on a team. This way they're able to trust each other. They both don't really trust their employer, but they do trust each other, and this bond is important because they're hacking some serious stuff now. They're breaking into SenseNet, which is the place where they hold what seems like all of these constructs. And a lot of the other constructs are famous people and people you'd want to hang out with, not just computer hackers. So Molly doesn't get it. She doesn't get why they aren't stealing those other programs as well. But their employer is who he is and does what he wants, pays them the money. And I think that's mostly it for the first fourth of Neuromancer. So we're going to be reading 25% to 50% next week in the Kindle, probably around 100 from page 125 or page 150 or so in the book, from the SenseNet hack to whatever the next big event is. So, Nick, anything else to add on this? How's the book going so far? Was it easy read, difficult read?
I think it was a little difficult at first, but once I got into like the bar scenes and he went back and forth between there, I started liking it because I like you said, I like the detail. He gets into like some of the little things, like when he describes Rats, the bartender's like mechanical hand. That's awesome. And he makes like a sign of force with his hand. I thought that was cool.
And again, he's just a minor character I don't even think we'll see again. But Gibson gives him all that description, and it is a little slower, but it's so exciting for the time where he's off the internet, and then the time where he's getting on the internet is so exciting for us, and then this next level, he really starts hacking things, getting heavy into the internet, and then the plot is going to unfold, and we'll see what happens next. So I think we're about good for this episode of World Crypto Book Club. Thanks for tuning in. We've got about 5 viewers. And you guys can pick up Neuromancer on your Kindles, or you can order the book, get a paperback. Should be most bookstores. It's good pickup. And
we'll read it on the Kindle.
Kindle's the way to go these days. It's really the especially you can order it up. You can just get it from Amazon or get it on another e-reader, and it arrives instantly. Or you go from not having the book to having the book, and you don't have to wait 2 or 3 days, even a couple days with Prime shipping.
Yeah, it's real nice. I like it a lot.
So I think we're about ready. So until next time, say goodbye, Nick.
Goodbye, Tom.
Good, Nick.